Hey y'all, let's try this again. So I have this video that I recorded this past Tuesday. Today is Friday, September 13th. And I recorded this video on Tuesday from over the last weekend, but I had a stain on my shirt and I just didn't like it. So I wanted to go ahead and re-record it. So over this past weekend, I met one of my best friend had this family and friends cookout. He does this multiple times a year. But I met one of his friends, one of his other close friends. Now, I've seen her before, but I've never actually had a conversation with her before. We had a conversation and we clicked. It was her and it was one other woman that was there, and we actually clicked. And let me just say, I'm not somebody who clicks to people quickly. I have a very, 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 very strong sense of discernment. I can smell nonsense from 10,000 miles away. So I don't play by just letting anybody around me and their energy around me and stuff like that. So I linked with these ladies, and like I said, it was genuine. I felt like it was genuine. And even since then, she has been on my heart. I've had like this pull towards her, and to the point where I had to quiz my best friend on her, like, hey, what type of time she on? What type of person is she? How her attitude like? Like, you know me, you know the type of person I am. Is that somebody that I would click with? And stuff like that. Just because I just became curious. And I think another thing that made this so unique, this friendship so unique, is that I don't know if she is a woman of God, but I do know she is a spiritual woman. Spiritual in the sense of sage, possibly crystals, possibly the universe, like that spiritual. And I know religious people may say, God would never want you to be connected with her. You can't have one foot here and one foot there and things like that. But you guys have to have a strong sense of discernment, and you have to have an open heart and allow God to do what he's going to do. Right? And so in this, God ministered to me two different situations. The first one is that you just cannot judge a person based on what you see. And what I'm reminded of is Acts chapter 10, when Peter went to preach the good news to Cornelius and the Gentiles. So if you remember, Peter was out, he was out about to eat, and he went outside. He got into a trance, and the heavens opened up to him, and God put down a sheet with some animals on there, and he told Peter to eat the animals. And Peter was like, no, God, these are unclean animals. And God told him to do it 2 more times. And then he said, Peter, don't call unclean what I have now made clean. Don't call unclean what I have now made clean. So, and God was preparing him, because when he went back inside, he learned that somebody had called for him. So who this was is this was Cornelius, who was a devout Christian, somebody who was very devoted to God, did what he was supposed to do. God led for him to send for Peter. So he had some soldiers and bodyguards and stuff send for Peter, bring him back. And that's where Peter learned that he was to give the good news to the Gentiles. And, one of the things that Peter said when he first got in there was, now I know that God shows no favorites, because, the Gentiles and the Jews are not supposed to be together. We're not supposed to be in the same vicinity, but yet God has called for me to be here. So, don't look at somebody on the outward appearance thinking that they're not for you, thinking that they are a bad person just because they don't do what you do. They don't pray like you pray. They don't talk to God like you talk to God. They don't, you know what I'm saying? Don't look at people on the outward side, on the outward appearance, and judge them based off that. God says in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7, man judges by what they see, but only God knows a person's heart. So we look at people and we see them right there point blank. You ain't this, so you don't need to be around me. And that's not what God does. God knows our heart. And I want to take that a bit further in saying that when we see people doing things, we are very quick to judge and say that's not of God, or God will never tell them to do that. But guess what? We don't know what God has called for them to do. We don't know what their purpose is. And so while God didn't tell us to do that, so we can't do that, it does not mean God has not signed off and led and allowed and told them to do this one thing. And let me give you all a scenario where you might not agree with. Judas, the one who betrayed Jesus. Everybody so mad at him. He turned Jesus in. Everybody wanted to fight. But he literally did what he was told to do. He fulfilled his purpose. His purpose was to betray Jesus, and that's what he did. This was a conversation that I had this past Sunday too, where, we all mad at him and stuff like that, but when we die and go to heaven, he might already be up there. Why? Because God looked at his heart and he fulfilled his purpose. God doesn't call us righteous because of our actions. He calls us righteous because of our faith and our heart posture. God is a merciful God. So there are many times, even me, where my actions do not match my heart posture. But God has not allowed me to feel his wrath. Based off my actions, I should be feeling a lot of anger right now. But God knew my heart in that moment. And he has given me grace. And he has given me understanding. So, in these different situations, for one, don't be so quick to judge what somebody looks like or how somebody acts on the outside because you do not know their heart. You don't know their heart. And two, just because somebody is not in alignment with what you want them to do, speaking to myself right now, just because somebody is not in alignment with what you want them to do or what you think they should do, does not mean they are not in alignment with God's will. Because they probably closer to God's will than you are. They probably more aligned with him than you are. Check yourself. Be focused on yourself. And just be ready to lend a helping hand when it's needed. Because no matter who that person is or no matter what they have done, if they need you, you are still to lend a hand. You are still to love on them. So that's the word. I hope you guys have a good night. Be safe. See y'all next time.